My secret, just do something that ain't nobody ever done before, but make it sound like something that's always been there forever.
Welcome to This Filipino American Life, a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States at iba pa. My name is Ryan Carpio, and I'm joined by my fellow hosts,
Joe Bernardo,
Elaine Delales,
and
Mike.
and bonus.
Bonus is Girly.
Yay, Girly's back.
I don't know what that was.
Oh,
Oh God.
Oh, it sounds
kaboom.
like that sounds like in Hunger Games when they like die.
Oh,
it should be whoop whoop. That's a sound of the police.
Oh my
Let's see if I
God.
have that. What's this? Oh no, that's not that either. I guess I don't have that.
Girly, I'm shaking my head too, Girly. But we do welcome you. Thanks
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
You're my favorite.
Yes. Yes.
See,
Ryan's
Joe?
my favorite.
Ryan's her favorite.
Yeah. You could have her then.
How you guys doing?
Did alright.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, thanks for the food, Joe.
Yeah, you like it?
It's meaty. What was it? Meatloaf.
Meatloaf.
This is such a weird introduction to what our show is going to be about today. But before we get to that, Elaine, do we have a TFAL of the episode?
Yes, the TFAL of the episode is Darwin Busuego.
Darwin.
Darwin.
Yeah, right?
Darwin.
Do you know Darwin? Bustuego?
Thank you, Darwin.
Darwin,
for
thank you
your
so
support.
so much for being a TFAL. I'm waiting for a joke from Joe, actually. Like,
I'm trying to think of one, but no, nothing. Darwin.
Drawing a blank.
See, Darwiner.
Darwiner.
Oh, wow.
Darwin, you're the winner.
survival of the fittest. Oh, sorry. High five. Yay,
Nice.
Darwin. Anyway,
Are
sorry.
you from the Galapagos Islands? That's
Oh my
such a
God.
nerd joke.
I just got that.
Oh man.
I love us. We're so stupid.
Anyway, as we evolve as a podcast, and as we evolve as I'm a food appreciator, and this is a food episode, ladies and gentlemen. So we're really excited to talk about this idea of veganism. So before we meet our guests a little bit later, to the group, what does vegan or alternative diets mean to you?
Vegan longanisa is really good.
I was waiting for it.
No, but seriously, have you tried vegan longanisa?
Like,
No, it's like a different kind of longanisa,
No.
right?
I don't know.
Yeah, how would you tell the
It's not
difference?
sweet. It's more savory.
Is
Yeah.
it like pamana,
It's
like
purely
what they sell?
savory.
No, they don't. Really, I don't think they sell it like
Like in the grocery store?
there's not like a brand. I don't think they sell it at Seafood City, but they make it in house. So they make the vegan longanisa in house, and it's just
good thing they don't make it in the outhouse.
Oh.
Sorry, keep going.
It's a different longanisa.
Oh, we're gonna edit that.
Oh, keep it in. That's
Come
funny.
on, this is a food episode.
so vegan longanisa is just more garlicky, and it's not really sweet. And it's more savory, so it's actually really good. And me and Girly had it. We had it a few times, but I bought it actually from Seafood City, and
And I was
we liked it.
less adventurous.
Yeah.
But then, after the third longanisa, I'm like, oh, we should get more of this.
Yeah. So, anyways, but to answer your question, I am not a vegan.
What? With that meatloaf? Could have sworn.
I'm not a vegan. But I do eat a lot more vegetables than I used to over the last 10, 15 years because of Opa Circulado
Thank
right
you.
there.
Bossing.
See, bossing.
Well, it's also because I always threaten to, do certain things if
Yeah.
he does pass before me.
Wow.
What? This got really weird. Carry on, veganism.
So, yeah, so a lot of my family, we're Tagalog, and my family's from either from Metro Manila or kind of Cavite, which is the province right next to Manila. So our diets aren't very vegetable heavy. We're very, like, my family for generations have been very urbanized. But Girly's family, on the other hand, is very probinsya.
Straight up
Wow.
Joe said that in a funny way.
So like even here,
province.
like they live in Stockton, which is a like agricultural town, farming community. You know, I really got introduced to a lot more Filipino vegetable dishes because of Girly.
Cool.
So for me, the whole idea of veganism is not very far off, simply because the majority of dishes that I grew up with were, you know, as Joe said, very vegetable heavy, but not, you know, I mean, my family still considers pork as a spice.
Yeah,
It is.
It's one of the Spice Girls. Porky Spice.
Porky Spice. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite Spice Girl. Spice up your life. Lechon forever.
I remember when my one of my cousins first brought his girlfriend around to a family party, and he was trying to explain to my aunt that, you know, his girlfriend was vegetarian actually at the time. And so she decides to cook Pinakbet and, you know, a few other vegetable heavy dishes. But, you know, she still used pork. So we all had to explain to her why our cousin's girlfriend could not eat it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just so ingrained.
Yeah, even in
our
recipes.
practice.
In recipes, it says at the end, seasoned with salt, pepper, and pork.
I'm telling you, it's a spice.
God, now Spice Up Your Life stuck in my head.
Spice up your life. It should be like pork up your life.
What about you, Elaine?
My family has been like, we're pretty much like, I want to say we were like more pescatarian because my family like did everything seafood wise. I mean, I've told this like sinigang I hated it for years because they only made it with rock cod.
Yeah. It just sounds delicious, though.
I mean, if you don't eat it
right,
every other week, then yeah. But I also like, we always had adobong pusit with my family. And my mom was like my mom loves pinakbet. Like she always would always order that. But I don't remember if it had meat in it, but I've seen recipes and it always has pork. So I'm assuming it does. But my memories of pinakbet are like, it's just squash and beans. Like that's all I can see when I picture the dish. I see orange squash and like sitaw, like long green beans. So in my mind, I'm like, that's what pinakbet is, even though I know there's meat. And like when we would make tortang tolong, which is why I hate it, there was never any
Meat.
There was never any meat in tortang tolong for my parents. Yeah. Like it was just egg and eggplant and me crying that I had to eat this again. So it's like, it's when I hear that people are like, you could have it with pork. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. So like my family, I think we were mostly like pescatarian, really. And the only reason they have a high blood pressure, in my opinion, is because we moved to America and they realized, oh my God, you can get chicharron bulaklak every week. And, you know, it's so delicious, and not think like this is probably going to make your blood pressure and cholesterol go up.
Chicharon bulaklak means fried flowers.
Fried flowers.
Yeah, fried flowers.
It's my,
JK.
It was my,
Really?
yeah, it is. Chicharon de bulaklak. It says fried flowers. It's what my Lola loved.
Pork flowers.
I grew up eating it, and I didn't realize what it was until I was older, and I still kept eating it because it's delicious. Do you know what it is, Mike?
No.
It's the intestines with a little bit of meat on it, and it's fried to look like a flower. That's why
What?
it looks like a flower. It's chewy. It's delicious.
I don't think I've had this then.
It's not vegan.
It's not vegan, that's for sure.
Oh, huh.
But
But I mean, I always thought it was bizarre that, like, yeah, like you had the seafood versions of everything that we had the pork versions of in my family.
yeah,
Like sinigang, and like it would always at least have chicken or something. I mean, like I didn't know you could make them seafood style the way that your family would make certain things seafood style. It's like, what part of the Philippines are you from?
The good part.
And I mean, like, my parents grew up, like, you know, on a seaside town. Like, our home is, like, on the beach, literally. But, like, I don't know if they, like, came to America and just adapted everything to have, like, meat or something, or that's just how they made it in the Philippines. But, like, you know, I go home now and, like, it's pretty common that they'll have, like, a steak ready for me.
Well,
you know?
I do, in my opinion, I think that, like, coming here, like, eating meat is a sign of wealth. For like somebody from the Philippines who grew up poor, like being able to eat red meat on a weekly basis is something that I know my relatives could not do in the Philippines.
Right.
Well, also I think economically too, like red or beef is a lot more cheaper here in the States, and seafood is way more expensive, right? Here,
yeah.
But it's totally the opposite in the Philippines.
Right. Yeah. Like I have an aunt and uncle who are basically retired, and they live in Texas, but they retired. Like they live in my parents' hometown in the Philippines, and it's like they would FaceTime my relatives at the monthly prayer meeting, and my tita would be like, "Look, this only cost me $5," and it's like this bag of like giant shrimp, and they're showing all the produce, like, "Look at this, tita, it would cost me $1," and like all my family is like, "Oh, it looks so good, it's so expensive here," you know what I mean? Like the lifestyle there, it warrants eating like healthier seafood heavy, at least for my family.
And I think, I mean, we have to face it as a community. You know, a lot of our diets aren't that great. You know, I mean, I know a lot of Filipino Americans, people who are like born here, who end up dying really young, like in their 40s or something, because they have like
heart problems,
you know, like, or they have a stroke or whatever. You know, their diets aren't very good. And I'm saying that I'm not trying to preach or anything, because my diet isn't the best, but still, I think we all have to be aware of what's out there, and be aware of what we consume.
Because we get to eat party food every day.
Right.
We shouldn't be eating like this type of, like the stuff that they sell at the Point. Like you shouldn't be eating that every day.
Yeah.
Like
It's a
lumpia
pulutan
Shanghai?
corner.
Oh my god.
But when you put it that way, Elaine, you're right. Like there's a lot of foods that we don't normally, like if you're in the Philippines, you don't normally eat a lot of these meat heavy foods in general.
Yeah.
Like it's usually a treat or usually a sign of wealth, and usually a sign of a feast when you're having a lot of meat. So like I'm like Joe, I grew up in the city in the Philippines, and you know our family was very much city folks. We didn't really have a province, but we were so used to like having meat in our dishes. But not to this extent of the access you have here in the States, where you can go to a point joint and be like, I can have adobo and sinigang. You know, I'm like, whoa, I could have bistek and caldereta. You know, like
not even the point, like Jollibee. Like you could.
Oh yeah.
I can have fried chicken and pancit palabok.
Yeah.
I can have fried
Those
chicken
are like
and
festive.
spaghetti.
Right.
Every day.
Right.
That's not healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing, and Jollibee's is huge in the Philippines, and that's why a lot of the Philippine diets in the Philippines are not
Are not as the healthiest.
Yeah, it's deteriorating because of the kind of what they call Jollibeeification
Yeah.
I mean, when
of the cuisine there.
when they're showing those like sappy ass ads that make you cry every time.
I want some Jollibee. I'm going to propose to you in Jollibee.
I haven't seen the new one, but that one where it's like the dad who died. Like, oh, you have to take care of your mom now.
yeah.
You're the oh my god.
Give me some chicken
I want some
joy.
chicken.
I need some joy in my life. Chicken joy.
Give me all the gravy.
Anyway,
And as Filipino Americans, like I also think our options or our access to really good produce isn't the greatest. I mean, here in LA, you know, I don't think they're gonna sponsor us, but like Seafood City and Island Pacific, your produce sucks.
oh,
Your produce,
There goes that ad money.
your produce is horrible.
Well, I'm not.
Well, okay, but like there's a lot of industry things as to why their produce is like that. I think there was one person who worked for one of the grocery stores that actually explain to us how produce gets divvied out from like the farmlands to whatever
Grocery stores.
Yeah. I mean, like, you know, you think about all the produce that is coming out of the Central Valley, for example. It does not stay in the Central Valley.
Where's it going?
It gets distributed
Throughout
to
the
other
country.
areas of the country. So, you know, the Central Valley in California used to feed the entire state, and now it does not. So there's a lot of politics in food.
But it doesn't deny the fact that Seafood City and Island Pacific.
Well, yes. Can't change that, Pac.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When my parents used to cook all the time, they would buy their produce not from a chain supermarket because the chain supermarket didn't exist, right? Like the chain, and I mean a chain Filipino supermarket like Seafood City and Island Pacific, because they would buy their produce from a place called DJ Babinkahan, which is Joe's DJ name, and also now a popular restaurant in Southern California. But before it was a restaurant, it was a supermarket. It was a small Oriental market in the 80s. That's what they were called. And my mom would buy long beans there. My mom would buy even dried goods like mungo there because it would be the only place to buy it, and it would be the place that I would kick that box of blue crabs because I was a kid, and that's what you do when you're 5 years old. But like those small markets had better produce, and I don't know how they got it or why.
They get it directly from like growers.
from the farmers.
right? But like that, I don't know. Like, do I need to go to like a Thai market maybe, like or something?
I mean,
like,
we go to a Vietnamese market.
and the
Yeah.
produce is better. It's just
Yeah.
Sometimes there is I don't know their names, but they go to different farmers markets. It's basically a farmer based in Fresno, Filipino, and they go both to the Bay Area and Los Angeles to the different farmers markets, and they sell their produce there. Sometimes we go there, but most of the time we go to this Vietnamese market or the local farmers market that has like an Asian farmer, and they have a lot of the Asian vegetables that we like.
Our local farmers market is the one in Encino.
Got it.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't even know anymore because I feel like the vegetables my parents bought were like basically like they were buying those things to make pancit. So I don't even know like what would I do? What would I buy for regular food? No idea.
I mean, I was fortunate, again, growing up in the Central Valley, that there was always some access to farm fresh produce. And, you know, I didn't really... And also my dad, he had a humongous garden growing up. So we always had access to fresh produce. And I didn't really, I didn't realize how valuable that was until, of course,
Until you leave.
until I became an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, every Saturday they have this huge farmers market in Stockton.
Oh yeah, I've seen videos about it.
Underneath the freeway pass, and then it's just like all like it's farmers market without the pretense.
Right.
Yeah.
There are no prepared foods or people barbecuing things there. It's like straight up selling chicken, selling turtles, selling duck.
turtles.
Yeah, man.
Wait,
Vegetarian
like
turtles?
for pets? Please don't tell me it's for the other
Turtle
thing.
soup.
Turtle soup. There's a Chinese population in Stockton.
I know, but that always makes me
I'm
sad.
just,
Or whoever wants to dream of being a teenage mutant turtle.
My dad when I told my dad I love turtles, he was like, "Oh, in the Philippines, when I was
Love stories that start with in the Philippines."
Because when he was working for he's doing like auditing for a bank, he's like, "Oh, this one company, they knew that I like turtle soup, and then they had this turtle there, and they were feeding it lettuce, and I was like." Why are they feeding it lettuce, Dad? He's like, yeah, I came back the following week and I had soup. And I'm like, what kind of soup? That's like turtle soup. I'm like,
Lettuce soup.
and I was like crying. And I'm
Apparently,
like,
the turtle's vegetarian.
so if you're Astig Vegan, I'm pretty sure you're not making turtle soup because you're probably using jackfruit to make that soup to make it delicious. And you saved a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles life.
Correct.
You know what I noticed, or when I found out when I was doing a little bit of research for the show, was how many vegetable dishes there are. But they're all kind of the same thing. So there's always like a boiled vegetable stew. In like every
in a
cuisine.
world. Like
No, in the Philippines.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
In each region. And obviously we know Pinakbet.
Yeah.
I I think in the Western Ilocos, it's called inabraw. But there's also denengdeng, which is the same thing.
Ew, what?
Denengdeng.
I thought that's made with bile.
No, wrong dish.
That's papaitan.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I got all like freaked out, like
But Tagalogs, they call it bulanglang. Have you heard that before?
Wait, bulanglang is denengdeng?
Yeah. Bulanglang is denengdeng.
Wow.
That's
Really?
gonna be the title of this episode.
Please,
Search that, people. Search that on your Google.
That's a good searchable terms right there.
Good searcher. Bulanglang is dinengdeng.
I'm like, is this
Love it.
bulalau? Because I like that one. Wait a minute.
And then in Ilonggo, it's called laswa.
Oh, that's what that is.
You know what that is, Mike?
But it's all the same thing. It's
No.
basically like a boiled vegetable stew with
Yeah.
maybe some kind of meat, meat to flavor it.
Yeah. Pork.
Pork. Or like some
Or
you know,
bogoong.
Yeah.
or bagoong or pates or
Pates.
whatever. Yeah.
But just for our sake, like for this episode, tell me about your experiences. Have you ever tried being a vegan, vegetarian? Have you changed your diet in that sense? I know Joe has, but
Wait, I have?
well, a little bit when you were talking about having more vegetables in your diet. But like Mike, for example, like we know in this podcast that Mike likes meat.
We know in this podcast that Mike hates vegetables.
Well, I don't know if
I don't hate
I don't know if he hates
vegetables.
it.
Name one vegetable you like.
Pork.
I will always contend French fries is a vegetable.
Not a vegetable. It's not. It's a potato is not a vegetable. It's a carb.
I like
Tater tots don't count.
Tater tots
too.
don't count.
I like broccoli.
But you
There you
only
go.
like it when
Okay,
it's
broccoli.
No. How do you like broccoli?
I like
No
it.
Vita.
No, I just like it like
How?
crispy. You know,
And-
like
Oh,
And
Oh, with cheese all over, right?
well, not really. Maybe, well,
so like roasted broccoli.
that's really
Oh, that sounds good.
Oh, all right, all right.
Well,
there was
I-
roasted broccoli here.
corn
right?
is like a vegetable, right? Like corn.
Yeah.
It's actually
Like
a fruit.
buttered corn.
Technically, it's a fruit.
It is.
But it's a starch.
It's a starch.
It is a starch.
But I mean, it's of
sort of
of,
carrots?
of the land.
Do you like carrots?
I mean, with enough ranch, yeah.
I did not mean to put Mike on the spot, but I guess what I wanted to kind of ask everybody is like, is there an openness to your lifestyle and the way you eat to certain kinds of vegetarianism or veganism?
Yeah.
Is that something? Okay.
I like to sometimes choose the vegetarian option at conferences because you get to eat first. No lie. They always have that pasta dish ready for you. So you don't have to wait for that like stringy hotel chicken. They'll just give you the. So sometimes I will pick vegetarian.
Because there's only like 10% of the attendees probably. They're like, oh, you can go first, and you can have multiple rounds.
And if you're on a plane that has a meal, if you choose vegetarian, you get your meal first.
pro tip,
Pro tip.
I have definitely cut down my meat consumption and increased my vegetable consumption.
that's good.
Sometimes I'll opt for the seafood or chicken over the beef or pork, but I can't get rid of. I can't be a vegan or vegetarian like straight up.
Do you think? Have you? Let me ask this: have you tried like eliminating meat at any point in your life, like through any of these diets?
It's called Lent.
Yes.
Yeah, Lent, right? I've done it through Lent.
Well,
No, that
yeah,
is-
I think most people do it through
Yeah.
Lent, but I actually had to do an elimination diet where I had to stop eating pork.
Oh,
What did you spice your food with?
Well, so I did. I actually started. So when I had to do that, I boosted all the different types of like herbs that I cooked with. So it wasn't like I wasn't familiar with how to cook with cumin, for example, or turmeric, or like a lot of different
you're
spices
making
that are
curry?
not often. Well, no, I mean they're not super common in Filipino dishes, at least the ones that the ones that I was most familiar with. But having done that, now we just have a boatload of
Spices?
in our
Pork.
cupboard that are not pork. But I found a lot of different ways to make really tasty dishes.
I would need to up my spice game because the only thing I ever use frequently is just garlic powder.
that's cool.
That's the only
Salt and pepper for me.
Well, yeah, I had to cut out garlic too.
I'm sorry.
I
I don't know
know.
what's happening.
Joe
here,
was
but
having a bad life for like 6
Seriously.
months.
You lost a lot of weight then.
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Girly did.
I did, yeah. But even that period of time, again, like I just started to think about like what is all the crap that's actually really in our diets, and just kind of thinking back on like why our ancestors ate the types of foods that they ate. So it was
Availability.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it was it was a little painful in the beginning, but after I caught my stride, I didn't really mind it as much. And I also realized how much time I spend thinking about food.
All the time.
Yeah, that's me too. When I'm sleeping, I'm thinking about food.
Yeah. I'm thinking about food right now, and I just ate.
But like when I did my elimination diet, like I felt like I had so much more time to spend on other things because I wasn't so. I don't know. I had a clearer mind too because I also had to cut out sugar and just kind of all this junk that I had to.
Cool.
That was impacting my body in not so good ways.
Cool. Well, we are going to have a treat for us today. We're going to talk to RG Enriquez. Also has a website called Astig Vegan, where she reimagines some of our traditional Filipino foods that may not be vegan, and making it a little bit healthier for us, delicious, and according to her, without losing its soul. So when we come back, we will be talking to RG Enriquez right after this.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Are you a business owner? Are you a Filipino American business owner? Would you like to hear your ad on our show, This Filipino American Life? Like, if you can do that by sponsoring This Filipino American Life. Like, if you are a business that is now out of business, like, what businesses, guys?
Like Tatak Filipino. You could have remained in business if you advertised in This Filipino American Life.
Or you could still feed me, Betsy's, with your wonderful
Your delicious
pandesal if
pandesal.
you advertise on This Filipino American Life.
Or if you are from Daly City, you remember Sinugba.
Oh, I do remember seeing
Yeah,
that.
it's not there anymore. Sad, huh?
Well, they should have had an ad from This Filipino American Life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would go on like right here, right now.
Hey, Ryan, how do you get an ad on This Filipino American Life?
You email us at thisfilipinoamericanlife@gmail.com or
what?
There is
Find
no
us.
or.
That's
Good
it.
job.
Yeah.
email us.
But yeah, if you were a business, you'd be hearing your ad right now instead of us talking to you about an ad that you could sponsor.
Exactly.
So sponsor us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we're back. How are you guys doing?
Yay,
Yay.
back.
Good ads, huh?
Great ads.
Great ads. Wonderful, wonderful. Everyone, we are so happy to have our very own Astig Vegan, RG Enriquez, on remotely online for us. Hi, RG.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good.
RG, where are you right now?
I am here in San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. Huh, Bay Area. Is it raining over there?
On and off. So right now it's not, but crossing fingers. It's just been unpredictable lately.
Southern California experienced a lot of rain this past couple of weeks, but RG, we wanted to welcome you to our show and wanted to talk to you about, what Astig Vegan is and tell us a little bit about your background. I know you're a Filipino immigrant, but we wanted to know more about your veganism and how that came about.
Yeah. Thank you for having me and for your interest in this topic. So, yeah, like you said, I'm a Filipino immigrant. So, astig means gutsy in Tagalog or kick-ass, and vegan means no animal products. So, it started when it started with a dilemma because I wanted to continue being proud of my Filipino roots. But when I decided to go vegan and not have any more animal products, I asked myself, well, is it possible, especially with Filipino food? Because Filipino food is one thing that reminds me of home. One thing that brings me back to Bacoor, Cavite, where I was born and raised until I was 15 years old. And to not have that anymore, especially my mom's cooking, because we all migrated here together. I didn't want to offend her. It's such a touchy subject, because I don't want to say no to her home cooking, and I also don't want to say no to my heritage, to my roots, and to my Filipino culture. So when I found out, with the help of my mom, that it's actually possible to have both, to have something that is vegan, and it will still remind me back of of the home of my childhood, I wanted to just share the good news to the rest of the world. So I took it to the blog. At that time, it was still my friend who was doing a blog. This was MySpace time. So this was when I think it was one of those Gmail or Google blogs still, and I was just doing guest blogs. Like, I know, guess what? I actually learned how to make vegan puchero or something, and then I would just be a guest blogger, like, sharing the recipes. And from there, I just really became really passionate about it, and then started Astig Vegan. Astig because I wanted something Tagalog, because I was thinking, well, there's Bon Appetit, which is not also English, so why not a Tagalog word for Filipino cuisine? And then from there, turns out that I'm not the only one who feels this way, that other Filipinos and even non-Filipinos also ask themselves, well, can I still have Filipino food if it doesn't have any animal products? So from there, Astig Vegan was born. It really out of that dilemma, whether I can still celebrate my roots if I'm vegan.
When did you start becoming vegan?
In college. It all started in college because I was the biggest meat eater in my family. Like, I would eat, steak, and just the lard is the best part, with rice. And but I took a nutrition class, which was far from being vegan. It lightly touched upon veganism. So I had no intentions of going vegan at all. But that class made me. So this was at Cal State Hayward. So back then, Hayward, now East Bay. So that sort of forced us to just be more aware of what we put in our bodies and what we consume. And so from there, it was very gradual. I started eating lean meat and lean turkey and all that, and then started doing it for health reasons, and eventually just didn't want to consume animals altogether. But I just didn't want to offend my parents back then. So outside of the house, I'm vegetarian, but inside the house, I would eat my mom's cooking. But I would take out the meat, and then my dad was like, I was scooping sinigang in my bowl, but without any meat. And then my dad's like, you keep taking out the meat, why don't you become vegetarian, And then I was like, oh my gosh, like, I underestimated them, thinking that they won't understand, but they totally do. They get at least the health aspects of it. And so from there, I was like, oh shoot, I can actually be, vegetarian, and they'll be cool with it. So, and then I was like, I will be proud that I am. And then from there, I think 5 years. So it's not overnight. I said, you know what? I think I'm good with dairy milk. I'm good with consume. Like, I don't have to consume dairy and eggs. Also because it became for animal welfare and environment reasons as well, and environmental reasons. So from there, I'm like, discovered that there are so many substitutes now. This time is when there's almond milk, and there's other kinds of dairy milk substitutes. So from there, and even now, vegan cheeses as well. So from there, it just became full on. And then with the help of social media, even not just my parents, but even my sisters would see, food photos. And how it is with Instagram and Facebook, when you see something, that looks delicious, you want to try it. So it really helped. It really helped dispel that it's not colorful or it's not enticing. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. So it started in college, and then from there, I never looked back.
Well, it's really interesting that you bring up the point about, you thinking that it, or just being sensitive to offending your family when you were starting to become vegan. That's just an interesting point, because I never even thought about it. I myself probably have more vegetables in my diet now, or less animal products in my diet now than when I was younger. And it for me, it came out of a lot of kind of health reasons as well. And then, so which caused me to think about like, what is in our food, or what is in my diet now, versus like what my ancestors grew up with. And I was also, this is girly, I was also born in Ballesteros, Cagayan. So naturally, like, our Ilocano dishes are more vegetables than meat products. And I wanted to challenge myself to see if I could do that. I mean, but like, inevitably I found out that a lot of our indigenous dishes are actually naturally vegetarian or vegan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very true. I also noticed that, a lot of people say, oh, Filipino food, and I myself included, am guilty of it. Sometimes saying, like, how can you have something that's vegan if it's Filipino food? But then few people will comment and say, actually, there are regions in the Philippines that are vegetable heavy. Did you know that? Or, like you said, there's Ilocano dishes like Pinakbet, for example. Even outside, I also noticed, and this is just my personal observation, that the more westernized, in the area in the Philippines, the more processed and also a lot of meat dishes that we have. And also like the more colonized, the area is.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, it was, granted, maybe it's not fully vegan, but it's usually just like shrimp paste, or there's fish, but it's not, beef heavy. It was not beef heavy. If anything, if there was pork, that was because there was like a huge wedding or there's a huge celebration, but everyday dishes didn't have a lot of animal products. And then, it's very interesting because some people would say, well, that's, no meat, that means it's not authentic. But little people we know, including myself back then, that no, that's not the case. Some certain Filipino dishes were very, very vegetable heavy.
So in terms of kind of reimagining Filipino dishes, and you talked about authenticity, and I imagine that there's some challenges that you have from folks who point out like, hey, you can't have, adobo without like meat, or you can't have kare-kare without meat. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of like the misconceptions that Filipino food has to have meat in it? Is there a lot of misconceptions about that? Or, as you reimagine some of these dishes, what have you found to be really cool about it, or, inspiring?
Yeah, so it ties back to the misconception that, people think that, especially other Filipinos, this is actually more true back then, meaning, early social media, because I've been vegan for at least 15 years now. But recently, so, before the food photos that became really popular and whatnot, before, people would be like, oh, it cannot be, traditional. So that was a misconception, that it cannot be Filipino or authentic if it has no animal products. But I realized that Filipinos like eating beef, for example, or meat, because it tastes good. not because it's from an animal. So that's my observation. So not necessarily from an animal. So if, let's say, the steak is bland or it's as hard as a rock, you wouldn't enjoy it. You can't say I enjoyed it even though I cannot really bite into it, as hard as a rock, because it came from a cow. So I'd like to dispel that it's actually the flavors and the textures. So if you can have the same thing and it's healthier, and it still reminds you of home, then why not try it? So that's what I try to offer. And whenever they ask, well, how? Well, here are the recipes. You're more than welcome to try them. And I also do food demos, and I make them, toward the end, try the food. And so it's sort of more of an education. And also on the flip side, with non-Filipinos, every time I would say, oh, and this is how you can, because I used to love tripe, and this is so great replacing tripe. And you would see the non-Filipino faces make, like, oh, like tripe. But then, like what? Innards, what? Intestines?
Not just non-Filipinos.
Oh, well, and certain Filipinos. But I think that there's Filipinos love it because of, like I said, there's some kind of chewiness maybe. And it's not necessarily because it had to be from inside. But anyway, so there's a misconception. But with the advent, with the social media, food photos, it's sort of helping promote. I think that's also what make people now curious about it.
I think you have a point, like in terms of the delivery. Sometimes I think with food, like it's really like a matter of like sauce delivery, because like if you're eating something and the sauce is good, like for example, like kare kare, like if it's really good, you're not gonna care that it's oxtail if the sauce is good, right? So if it's being delivered with, jackfruit, then
we're all about deliciousness.
Yeah, it's gonna be delicious. But then you just have to like sometimes finagle certain people who don't like vegetables and let them eat it, thinking that it's regular. Like I had quote unquote crab cakes last week, but they were jackfruit crab cakes, and I didn't tell Mike it was crab cakes until he ate one.
No, you told me they were crab cakes. You didn't tell me they were jackfruit.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, you don't need to like lie to me. I mean, if it tastes good.
Was it delicious?
I
mean, it definitely wasn't crab, right?
No.
I don't know. I mean, I guess someone like me, it would have given me a little bit of pause and be like, no, but that's not really a crab cake.
Right.
But I mean, like,
you just want honesty.
And I mean, I think it's interesting. And this is the thing that I've been contending with around like kind of what I guess you could consider like bridge foods, right? Like especially like things like Impossible meat or whatever it's called. Like the idea that like you can kind of get, veggie based kind of foods to kind of emulate or replace certain specific meats. Mm-hmm. I think for some people they need that to kind of understand, like, or to at least kind of psychologically or mentally get into it. But also for me, like, I think it sets up an expectation for me that like, well, if it's going to be like a hamburger patty, like I'm going to expect a hamburger patty and not like a
See, but to me,
so this is it's more of a mental block for me when you try to emulate the meat,
right?
Like
right.
just.
But
call it jackfruit cake instead of a crab cake.
But you have like weird issues with food where you don't like things because they're supposed to be a certain way. Like you don't like sweet potato because a potato is supposed to be it's supposed to be
but this is
savory.
But this is
It's psychological.
right. This is important though, in the sense like there is a reason why, veggie patties look like what you would have hamburger patties look like, or they were the attempt to make something that's not meat taste like meat, to attract people who don't necessarily have who will eat meat just because it's available. And so I think that has a lot to do with kind of like the psychology of things, and what you were talking about, Elaine, is how it gets delivered. So what I'm curious about from you, RG, is are there actually like vegan dishes that you know of, like very Filipino vegan dishes that we don't even think twice about it being like thinking it's vegan. I imagine there's some desserts out there that are like completely vegan, completely delicious, authentic Filipino, but we don't think twice because it's delicious.
Right, yeah. There are savory as well. So for dessert, let's say there's suman, some maja blanca, for example, are naturally turon.
Oh yeah, hello.
Yeah.
This is just gonna make us hungry.
Yeah, and for savory, even there's ginataang langka, ginataang kalabasa at sita, which is squash and long beans in coconut milk. Laing, certain laing can be. Whenever I visit the Philippines, my aunties will be like, "So what are we going to cook for RJ?" And they would always make me really delicious laing, and it's naturally vegan. So certain dishes like that, and even easily veganizable will be munggo, for example. So it's where the like in Pinakbet and some regional dishes where the vegetable is the main star of the dish. So, and then like you said, it even in the vegan community is such a huge debate about the whole mock meat or whole based. Just call it a vegetable dish. So yeah, it's not just out. It's a debate everywhere.
How do you get around, using vegan bagoong or vegan patis?
Yeah, because like for laing and all that, you have to use bagoong. So how do you make that vegan?
Yeah, with laing, with kare-kare. I mean, kare-kare has to have bagoong as a condiment, and there is. It's on my YouTube. It's in my kare-kare episode, I showed how to veganize bagoong, which is basically, and it has to be simple too because I cannot intimidate the home cook and not try it. So this one is a more improvised one. I used to sell the bagoong itself, the complicated version, but the easy improvised version is just to use garlic black bean sauce. And then add more sea salt and a nori seaweed for the sea flavor.
Oh, nori.
But you shred the nori seaweed, and then it will have that it will have that shredded texture.
Oh.
So, and that's easy. Like you can go to Safeway or you can go to your to nearby supermarket and get those ingredients and still have it. So yeah, and that, like I said, the tutorial for that, if you still need the tutorial, will be on YouTube. Just search vegan kare-kare.
Will you try that, Joe? Will you cook that for us next time?
You can just call it black bean with seaweed sauce.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I really appreciate about your approach, Archie, because, I know that you also have I think it was a bibingka mix that was gluten-free and vegan, that you just make it very approachable and very easy. And I keep going back to the question that Ryan asked, about dishes that we already eat that we don't even think twice about whether they're vegan or not. But the other thing that's really interesting to me is, there's all this like greater consciousness around healthy food, however people want to define that. How has that, if at all, impacted, the popularity of Astig Vegan?
Like the health consciousness aspect.
Yes. Yeah. Just the whole healthy food industry.
Oh, for sure. The healthy food industry. So now vegan festivals and food festivals that have a health conscious angle now want to learn about Filipino food too. So, like the San Francisco Vegan Festival, for example, usually they would have demos, they would have, but then back then they wouldn't incorporate Filipino food education. But because more and more people are now watching their health, they are now also intrigued with, there's also healthier Filipino food, even at Filipino festivals. Like, for example, Pistahan here in San Francisco. At first, when I started vegan, I thought that the first person who would protest what I'm doing will be a lola. And lola will know, lola is, not just even the mom, the lola, because back then they had more time in the kitchen, and they really know the traditional way. But 90%, if not 100% of my audience at Filipino food festivals are lolas. And I was scratching my head. And not only that, because they just want to, they want just to watch something. No, they were engaged. They were asking questions, and they would even give me suggestions. Actually, you should try this instead. But and I found out that they were interested because of the health aspect, because they were told by their doctors to not eat Filipino food anymore. If you want to live longer, if you want to live longer, don't eat Filipino food anymore. And so they were like, shoot, okay, I'm just going to have to give up Filipino food now and eat something else. When they learned that there is a way for them to still continue having what they're used to back home, back when they were cooking in the kitchen, they got excited and they realized, oh my gosh, I can still have my nilaga. I can, so that made me, or I can still have my lugaw. I can still, because of the high blood pressure, the cholesterol, and so many, unfortunately, Filipinos have heart bypass surgeries because of the food that we eat. So when I show them a way and they try it in the end, they were like, it's so easy, I can do that. And they get very intrigued. So I underestimated my parents before. Unfortunately, I underestimated the lolas. They know what's up, they can do this, and they're open to it. They're open-minded and flexible to change because it affects them personally and especially their health. So it's sort of it just opens so many doors for Astig Vegan after people becoming interested in healthier food.
It almost feels like a return to like what Filipino food should be, because Filipino food in the States, I think like most of our parents and whatnot's like they're immigrants and they see like that beef or pork, it's easily accessible as opposed to when they're back home. Like for my parents, like they're from Mindanao, so they didn't really eat beef a lot. They were mostly seafood based. So my family, we would always eat seafood. Like adobong pusit was a regular occurrence in my regular meal growing up, or seafood sinigang. It wasn't until I was an adult, like 35 years old, that I realized you could have sinigang with pork, because my family for my entire life was cooking it with seafood, with rock cod. And so like my point is that like now with this Astig Vegan, it's like Filipinos in the Philippines make this food and their health seems to be slightly better than ours. But Filipinos in America, it's like we see that, steak costs $5 or whatever. I have no idea how much steak costs, by the way. So like your introduction is like a re-education of like what could be. Because like you said, mungo. Okay, so I like mungo when it is just the mungo and maybe like dried shrimps in it, like the little shrimps. But for my parents, when we buy mungo at like the point, they get angry if the mungo is just mungo.
Oh, they want meat.
Oh, they want the meat.
They want the meat. Like they say like, oh, this is like, why am I buying this if there's no ulam in it? Like if there's no pork.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm like, but when we would make it at home, Mom, like
You don't have anything.
you wouldn't have pork in there. It would seriously just be like mungo and like the tiny dried shrimps, which isn't necessarily like the healthiest, but that's what we would do.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably, you're right. It's probably why certain lolas would even give tips like, oh yeah, I remember back then when I was living the farm, this is what we would do. So they would even share their stories. So yeah, that's probably why. And then also I think with the introduction of here in America where meat is very available and more affordable. We're more inclined to eat more meat. I remember I brought vegan lumpiang Shanghai to my family party, and my cousin said, "Oh, can I order lumpia from you? Because my mother-in-law, she really makes good pork lumpia, but she's putting less and less meat. And in my head, I'm like, mine doesn't have anything at all. But I think it's the what we're going for is the taste and the texture. So it's really what makes us enjoy meat, I think. So if you can still have that, and then just get over the fact that, if it's actually an animal or not, then you can have that same result. So, and then there's also the other side where if you just want to go back to your roots and really learn how our ancestors would do it in their farms, then we would know that, yeah, it's simpler back then,
So, there's like a kind of a certain narrative out there that eating healthy is more pricier, especially in the United States. That's kind of like the narrative. So you see a lot of people who are more middle class, upper class, who tend to shop at Whole Foods, for example. Is that a myth that it's that eating healthy can be pricey? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, certain dishes are. I'm not gonna lie. Certain vegan dishes are more expensive than non-vegan ones, and certain vegan dishes are way cheaper. Because it depends. Like I say, are you going to compare fast food, for example, which is way cheaper than if you're going for shopping for something like quinoa, for example. So yeah, but for me at least, whenever I try my dishes, let's say for nilaga, it's probably 3 times cheaper than if it has meat. So it depends on the recipe, depends on the dish, and if you make it yourself. If it's processed product, for example, like mock meats, because it had to go through certain processes, then yeah, it's more expensive. But if you go with more whole-based vegetables, then it's cheaper. So it all depends. But even then, if you get sick toward the end and you were saying, but you're having really affordable fast food, but toward the end you have to pay for hospitalization, you have to pay for medicine, and also you're in pain. It's expensive. Medical costs are expensive. So it's in the end, it's still more expensive if you, even if you buy all organic and all those, like super health foods, it's still cheaper than, let's say,
than Lipitor.
medicines that you have to pay.
Yeah.
Lipitor's expensive, man.
So is metformin.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I would like to take credit for Joe's eating habits.
Joe,
Are you okay?
What do you
What?
explain more? Explain more.
So I remember him telling me a story when the last time he went to the Philippines, he was staying with family, and whenever they would go out, they would order all the really rich dishes in Manila, and Joe would be like, "Oh, but let's get a vegetable dish." They would look at him weird, like, "What?"
I still look at him weird now.
By the way, my mom is from Kawit, Cavite, so we're neighbors.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fellow Caviteña.
Caviteño, yeah.
Yes.
I have a quick question for you, RG. How do you think your approach and your dishes and your recipes are received in the Philippines? I imagine there's some kind of difference, or is there a difference between the reception of like veganism between the United States and the Philippines? Or do you know?
I thankfully do, because there was last year they held an all vegan Filipino festival, first ever in history.
What?
Where?
In Quezon City.
Oh,
Oh.
I thought Never Land.
Yeah, this is in my dream. Yeah, in dimension 321.
It wasn't in vegan Ilocos Sur.
Oh my god!
Yes.
Stop
It has
it.
pork. It's vegan longganisa. No, that's one other misconception. Vegan longganisa. No, yeah, it's more. ironically more celebrated over there than here. It's polarizing, like meaning you love meat there in the Philippines, but if you are like, into vegan or even eating healthier, they really go like full on, like, oh, I want to try the recipes because last year, and this is just recently though. I'm not, this is not like this wasn't because 4 years ago I went 5 years ago 2013. I went and I said, "Oh, I'm gonna do a vegan Filipino potluck," and I invite everybody. We're gonna have it in Quezon City, and I really promoted it hard. 12 people showed up, which is nice, but most of them are meat eaters, so they were just, like, "Oh, I want to see," But last year I was invited to do a meet and greet and also a demo for their all vegan festival, and thousands went.
Oh my god!
I'm not lying. This is like, yeah. Well, I don't know if they're all vegans, but I'm sure, still,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, this is crazy. And then more than 20 vendors are all vegan Filipino. They have all kinds of food. It was mind blowing, and it's also celebrated here. I mean, those vegan Filipino kamayans are just going viral. We all, there in LA and here in San Francisco and even in New York and even, in England. England as well. I think Oh My Gulay has business there. So it's spreading. But in the Philippines, it's just with a Veg Fest. They call it Veg Fest Pilipinas. It just exponentially grew. So it's amazing, and I'm just grateful to be part of it because I was just in awe.
That's awesome.
I think it works too because rice is vegan. We can't give up the rice.
I can give up meat, but I cannot give up rice
and sugar.
That's for another day.
So
I don't know if
So when you're coming up with your recipes and you're reimagining, Filipino dishes, what are some of the challenges or surprises that you've encountered?
Well, like what we were talking about, the surprises, that certain Filipino dishes certain Filipino recipes are actually almost vegan anyway. So what, like the below, for example, suman, the munggo, you can easily veganize that if you want to, and then there's laing, you can do that. So those are surprises, and also certain ingredients. So when we were before, we were talking about tripe for the kare-kare. There's it's called snow fungus, and it's basically a mushroom.
Ooh,
and it's just like tripe, but it's medicinal. So they're like, not only it won't give you cholesterol, but it also is healthier for you because it has medicinal. It's actually a Chinese medicinal herb. So it's really cool. And then there's also black salt, which has that eggy flavor. So that takes care. Certain ingredients really takes care of certain flavors that I find surprising and really cool at the same time. So if it's just it takes a lot of once you sort of explore what's out there at your grocery store, it's surprising what you can find. Do you guys cook?
Yes. Most of us do.
I mostly eat. But hey, there's no. If you're not the ones eating, then what's the point of cooking, right? So I want to be the the appreciator of the work that that cooks do. That's basically what I'm saying. Who's gonna enjoy your foods? But yeah, we do cook. Joe's gonna try some of these things as well.
Yeah,
I'm looking
I
forward to
definitely try these things. Yeah.
Joe cooks more in our house than I do.
And I think in general, if you end up cooking your own food, we were talking about earlier about affordability. I actually think it's a myth, based on what you said too, RG, about health concerns and what's expensive in terms of medicine. But if you start just cooking on your own and not looking at fast food as a delivery of getting you nutrients, my goodness, there's so many. I still get surprised at how much I spend at like a on produce. You know how little I spend on produce, just because I'm cooking for prep mealing for a Sunday or something like that. So I think it's definitely a marketing thing where people are saying like, oh, it's too expensive to eat healthy. I don't think that's necessarily true.
I agree, because like, okay, I feel like people discredit it all the time. But if you were to go to the 99-cent store, you could easily get good produce there. Like, because I love going there for like spaghetti squash. Because like at Trader Joe's, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to find if it's not in season to them. And like I can just roll to the 99-cent store and there will be like spaghetti squash. There will be like green beans. Like it depends on which one, obviously.
Yeah.
But you can get decent produce, and then also like just makes sense. Like yes, it's the 99-cent store. You might need to cook it right away, but it's still good. And so like you can make such good meals by shopping there.
And I also want to encourage myself and some like. You know, the whole idea of going to the palenque, like my grandma used to go to the market or palenque every day.
Yeah.
It was part of her routine to get something that she's going to cook that day.
Yeah.
And so I think we just got used to like storage and refrigeration and ease and processed things that were like, you know what? If I can buy a hot dog, you know, like, and that can keep for like 3 weeks, you know, then I'm going to get that. And we don't have this routine any longer, or at least not that I can see that we can go to the market or a palenque. And sometimes they make it so difficult for you to be able to do that, and to make it so easy to get, you know, processed cheese and, you know, some Lunchables and all that stuff. But
Kid cuisines were like the thing that you wanted to get because it was so delicious and it was frozen and you get to pop it in the microwave.
all I'm saying is, for RG and for all those vegans out there, if you can make vegan Lunchables or something,
Vegan
right?
kid cuisine.
Vegan kid cuisines, more power to you. More power to you.
Vegan Ore-Ida fries. Oh wait, those are already vegan.
Just don't lie about it. Just don't tell Mike it's meat when it's not.
So just be upfront.
Yep.
What are some tips for folks who want to experiment with eating or cooking vegan Filipino dishes?
Yeah, and start with what you know. I mean, with what Mike said and you guys before, that you know there are certain dishes that are, if not all vegan, almost vegan anyway. So start with those first. If you're intimidated with the whole, well, I don't know how to replicate crab cakes or whatever, then you can just start with, you know, munggo, for example, and then don't be too hard on yourself. You know, if you know your style. If you want vegan overnight, then more power to you. My friend did that. Or if you want to do pescatarian first and just add your dried shrimp, or if you just want to try it, like if you just want to be flexitarian is what they call it.
Ooh, I like that.
That's a
Be
good
flexible and open-minded to it. Yeah, just go for it and just know your style and honor it. Because for me, at least, you know, I'm just talking about myself now. Like personally, it took me several years, and I didn't plan it like now I have to do this. No, it's just more I was listening to myself and to I feel like what's best for me, and have fun with it. Use the internet now more than ever. You can use your, you know, astigvegan.com is there for you to. The recipes are there, and you know the YouTube videos are there. If you have more questions, you can DM me on Instagram. Like use your and even on other YouTube channels, there are other cooking shows there where you're like, okay, how the heck am I going to do this part? Well, then you can go online and look it up, and the answers are always now available. We have so much information online. I know it's tricky because sometimes it's a trap. The next thing you know, you're like, you know, just watching all these other things. But yeah, so use it to your advantage as a tool. And know your style and have fun with it. And I'm always here to help.
So you're gonna make a vegan whole lechon one of these days?
Oh my god! Wow.
I don't know.
How?
Vegan lechon, is that what it?
Yeah.
Like a whole lechon. shape it into a lechon.
Definitely do not.
Well, you can make it a cebolechon so that it's just
The roll?
The roll.
Oh.
I feel like if you crisp up like tofu enough, like you get lechon kawali probably.
And
but
would you be
don't say
okay?
that it's pork. It's just like
Fried
tofu kawali.
So sensitive, Mike. So sensitive.
Yeah. So for sure, there's actually now called vegan lechon kawali.
What?
Yeah, and that's available in the Philippines. They call it. So yeah, it's not even called vegan pork. They call it veg-chon.
Veg-chon.
I want this. Where can I buy this?
I like that. I do like that.
Is it a mock meat or is it jackfruit? Or?
Yeah, so it's a it's made of soy and it has I think tapioca flour as a fat, but I'm not. But I have because this was I just saw it, but I didn't really study how it was made, so. I'll look it up for you guys, but it's made of soy. It's more of it's a processed product for sure. It's hard to do it from scratch.
So, RG, are you headed to the Philippines in the next year?
I'm headed to the Philippines this Wednesday.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah, I am flying there, and I'm gonna move there temporarily.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I really want to pursue Astig Vegan full time and just like really go full on with it and study it. And like we were talking about that there are we have 7,000 islands and more, and I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There are,
Yeah.
I should travel more, go to Ilocos, go to Cebu and Davao, even Pampanga and even Baguio, and know what other ingredients are we using? Visit the farms. Like, is it just really, adobo, pancit, lumpia? If now people are like all about sisig and kare-kare, but how about the other dishes that we haven't heard of? So I really wanted to immerse myself in that environment and then come back and share it with everybody.
Will you be doing classes while you're there? Will you be teaching?
Not yet. So I will announce that. Right now, I just want to research first before teaching, but I'm definitely going to document it. So
Great.
I might do, I might share it on YouTube and on astigvegan.com. What I learned so far. Yeah, I'm so excited. Like I'm gonna interview people and visit their palenques and also visit their farms.
That's wonderful.
What's been your kind of the most rewarding part of starting Astig Vegan and all the YouTube videos and the blog and everything? What's been the most rewarding part for you?
That I hear people would comment back and say, you know what, I really thought I have to give up my Filipino culture because now I'm eating healthier. So that one really melts my heart because I feel like some sort of sense of community, because back then I really thought it was just me. And even non-Filipinos would be like, oh, I've now tried something Filipino, and I'm vegan and I tried something Filipino. I really liked it because my partner is Filipino, and now there's a bridge now to our differences. If let's say one is vegan and the other one is not, but the other one is Filipino, they now can sort of find a way to enjoy a meal together. So those are really rewarding. And sometimes with the social media, sometimes we get trapped into getting instant gratification with likes and comments. It's good to step back and really think about how am I really helping, even if I'm not talking to them directly. Just to hear certain stories after a while makes me think that, somehow I have helped even back then, because like, for example, my cousin, unfortunately, she passed away several years ago, but I had no idea that she had been following my blog when she was at the hospital. So certain things like that really warms my heart, that there are people who find value and somehow the recipes have helped them. It's just great. That's why I do what I do.
Well, this is girly, and I do have to echo what you just said about, what you just said about just kind of, staying in touch with our culture and kind of shifting our diets. And for me, when I found your blog, when I was I did an elimination diet in 2015 because of a lot of allergies that I had, and I had to kind of temper the inflammation that was manifesting because of the allergies. But when I found your blog, that's when I started to realize that, oh man, I could still keep eating Filipino food, but in a different way. And then I realized the different way is, again, like, this is how our ancestors used to eat before all this processed food, all the colonization came into being in the Philippines. And most recently, I picked up a book that's a collection of short stories from, or articles rather, from Doreen G. Fernandez. She's a Philippine food writer, professor, anthropologist. And she actually traveled the islands and taught it, like, she researched all the different kinds of indigenous dishes, and she talks about how non-Filipino ingredients become Filipino. She has a whole opinion about that. But your blog in particular was one of the things that just kind of helped me have confidence in
thank you.
Yeah, it helped me have confidence in eating differently, and thinking about, like, not dispelling any aspects of who I am as a Filipino, and just really, like, think about, just be more mindful about the types of foods that is in our diet, and how things are prepared and such. So I really appreciate what you're doing, RG. And
I want to know the name of this book, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
It's called Tikim.
Oh yes, Tikim.
Oh, Tikim. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I read that.
Just a taste.
But she's
one of the foremost scholars of Filipino food. The last few like 30, 40 years.
Yeah,
so.
she passed away in 2002, and she taught classes. I think she might have taught classes at UP. But, since you're there, you might as well, look up some of her work.
I will, for sure. I always hear her name every time Filipino food history comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I definitely have to check it out. UP, right?
I think she might have taught there, but I'm sure if you, just kind of research her name while you're in the Philippines, you'll pull up a lot of info about her.
Yeah.
So we have to wrap up, but I wanted to ask, what are some of your favorite vegan restaurants anywhere in the world?
I recently got married.
Hey, congrats.
Congratulations.
Yeah, this was back in July. So August we went for a honeymoon. Went to Paris and Rome. And Rome had this restaurant. It's almost all vegan. I'm gonna butcher the name. It's called Refugio Romano. It means Roman refuge. Oh man, so good. Their vegan menu is just heavenly. I really enjoyed it, and I really can't wait to come back. That was one of my favorites so far. It's just really good. Gnocchi, the pizza. They make their own in-house cheese.
Oh man,
it's so good, and it's just coming. They know their stuff, and I was so suspicious of it. Because, okay, this is vegan. So I asked the server, and she actually was the daughter of the owners, and she was the one who advocated for a full vegan menu aside from the regular menu. So because she's vegan, so yeah, and it was mind blowing, and I would really love to come back. So I mean, I have so many favorites, but so far that's just top of my head.
Wonderful.
RG, this has been so much fun talking to us about. I love food, so any kind of any shape, form of food, I think it's great. But I just wanted to say thank you. This is RG Enriquez, who is a vegan and believes that Filipino food can be vegan, healthy, delicious without losing its soul, which I think is awesome. RG, and I saw some of your videos. It's absolutely in the taste, and the soul really comes out. You love what you do. Where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, so if you want to just look up the recipes or just curious, then it's on astigvegan.com. The recipes are there. If you want to see how it's being cooked, then you can watch them on YouTube. I just search vegan Filipino recipes. You'll see my face. I'm also on Instagram. In fact, way too much. So you can DM me. It's Astig Vegan, ASTIG Vegan. And then you can also look up the hashtag Astig Vegan and even Vegan Filipino, and you'll see so many of us there. So not just me, but there are so many vegan Filipino businesses now popping up everywhere. So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hear from you guys.
I highly encourage you follow Astig Vegan on Instagram, because her posts, all the food looks so good. Like, people post that they use her recipes, and I'm always like, oh, that looks, especially like if I'm at work and I'm just staring at it right before lunch, I'm like, this is a bad idea.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think 100% now of photos on Instagram are from other people who have used my recipes, because I really want to showcase and just say thank you to them, and they are doing amazing jobs, sometimes even better than what I originally came up with. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Cool, thank you. This has been great.
We're looking forward to following your journeys in the Philippines, RG.
Thank you. Yes, let's keep in touch. And thank you guys for having me. I am very just honored that, to be here, to be interviewed by you guys. And also just appreciative that you think that the vegan topic is also worth talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Salamat, RG.
Salamat.
This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado, legal advisor Rianne Fajardo, and graphic design by Vincent Collyer.